one of the biggest things I always say to people that I work with is I want people to feel as though that they've met you even before they've actually met you. I want them to read your content, watch your content, go onto your profile and genuinely feel like that there's a real connection there. And so how could that not grow and be exponential over time? Because you're being completely connected to your values and you're living through your values. I'm very, very focused on that because your business and who you are shouldn't be any different, because it's not necessarily what you're selling or your product or your service, even though that is, a key component to it. But it's not that. It's how you are and how you show up as a business person. It's the energy that you put in to your business. It's the energy that you put into yourself as an individual. I feel like they are all the same thing. They are not separate to who you are.
Hello, amigos. It's Celeste Leon, and welcome back to the Light to Success podcast, a place where we can discuss how to strengthen our mindset, increase our confidence, and maintain a high level of motivation to reach the next level of success in our lives. So, let's get started. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Light to Success podcast. I am so excited about today's conversation. I have a phenomenal leader with us today. Her name is Tima Elhajj. She is an entrepreneur, LinkedIn influencer with nearly 120,000 followers, and the CEO and founder of Tima Media and Consulting. She is a phenomenal leader, a stellar individual who has transformed her life from finance to fashion to now writing, coaching, and speaking around the world to help people level up in business and entrepreneurship. She lives in Melbourne, Australia, and one of the things I love most about her is her real life embodiment of her femininity and authenticity as she lives her life. Welcome, Tima, to the podcast, and excited to have you today.
Thank you so much, Celeste. What a beautiful introduction. And I love your accent. I could listen to it all day.
I love yours, so right back at you. I love it. Well, today I actually, instead of starting this podcast asking her a question, I actually want to share with you all one of her, not so recent, but a post she made on LinkedIn sharing her story regarding the power of personal brand and how that actually transformed her business. So I'll share it. I'll read it for you all, and then I'll let Tima take over after that. So let me get started here. She says that in 17 minutes, she lost 90% of her business. It was March of 2020, and she was genuinely at a point where she believed she made it. She felt as though she finally had a real business and she was ready to hire her first full-time employee. 2 months prior, she had closed 3 of the biggest deals in the history of her company with reputable organizations in Australia who each had signed 12-month contracts. They were a couple of months into the work, and she decided to go shopping, take care of herself, and went to one of those bougie streets and bought herself some beautiful items. And as she walked down the street, heading back to her car, she, thinking she made it, feeling super proud of herself, her phone rang. And one of her new clients shared, saying, "Tima, I'm really sorry to do this to you. We love working with you, but we need to pull the plug on our work together. Not many know this yet, but we've been told that the entire state will be in lockdown in 48 hours. We don't know how this will impact our business, but for now, we can't continue. I hope you understand." And this, as you all can imagine, is right at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. So right after that, within the next few minutes, she began receiving call after call from various clients going through the same realization. This definitely took Tima by surprise. And she thought to herself, what will be her next step, and how she manages her mindset from this point on will be absolutely crucial to her success. At that point, none of us really knew what the lockdown meant and how the pandemic was going to impact all of our businesses. But she knew that as long as she can access the right people, money was there to be taken and to help others, right? And to still have a successful business in some way. So this brought her calm, and she remembered what one of her recent podcast episodes from Grant Cardone had told her, which is when Grant Cardone in 2008 was in technical default of $42 million. He believed that the only way out was by applying the strategy. I gotta get known. He explained that it's harder to say no to someone that is known versus someone who isn't. So Tima decided that to expand her company globally and take that next step, she was going to significantly invest in her personal brand. And now I can personally tell you from an outside perspective and seeing her success throughout the years, this has 100% paid off. And now she helps many people and CEOs and big people who want to make an impact in the world do the same. So I'll hand it over to you, Tima. How has building your personal brand completely transformed your business, the way you live your life, how you help the world, and all of that amazing stuff?
Thank you so much for sharing that story. You're a wonderful storyteller. And yeah, it's a crazy story, but it's completely true. And yes, it was one of those bougie stores. Let me make that very clear. And I walked out of this store thinking they were clothes actually. They weren't bags or shoes or anything, but they were clothes. And I'm like, I couldn't wait to wear them. And believe it or not, the first time I wore one of those outfits, because I couldn't return them, it was a no returns policy store. And the first time I wore that particular outfit was last year. It took me that long. I still have the receipt and everything to remind me of that day. So this concept of personal branding, it's so interesting because it feels like it's another person to you, or it's this other thing, this attachment, like an accessory, but it isn't. It's a reputation. It's your reputation. Basically, it's just a fancy way to say your reputation. And for me, when all of that happened, I kept saying to myself, this is a defining moment, not just for me, but for everyone in this world. We're all going through this together. But I knew that for myself in terms of a business aspect, I thought I'm going to look back on this and really reflect on how I dealt with that particular situation. And I knew that building what I had already built up until that point in terms of my reputation or my personal brand, I knew that I had already had that kind of trust with people online that had called that particular day. They were Australian-based clients. And I thought to myself, okay, I know how this works. I know that there's always money to be made. And I always know that we can just access that if we just try, like money can always be made. I didn't want to accept the fact that I was going to lose all of my business. I've got a lot of responsibility. I have my family to take care of, my parents to take care of, all of those sorts of things. So what I decided to do was just completely just focus on building my personal brand externally in terms of like on a global aspect. I just completely invested in my values. I completely invested in my mission and really sharing that. And it really, honestly, it made a huge difference, because what that did for me was it meant that opportunities were continuous for me. There was no fear element in where is the money going to come from. I could see beyond some of people's fears. Some of the people that I was speaking to here were constantly in fear of not making money, constantly in fear of losing money, those sorts of things. But investing in my brand online, because it was, global, it just allowed me to have those opportunities and open those doors for me. And it also gave me the opportunity to meet people that I would never have been able to meet if I just focused on Australia, if that makes sense. So I started to meet people in the US, I started to meet people in the UK, the UAE, people that had money, people that still believed in investing in themselves, people that looked at the situation and said, we don't know what's going to happen, but we've been through recessions before, and this is the time to be able to put ourselves out there, and this is the time to actually go digital, because the whole world was going digital at that point. We were all forced to go digital. And so having that ability to invest in my own brand, they could see the benefit from that. So they could see the evidence. And so that really just opened doors for me and allowed me to meet some incredible people. So, but I'm sure we'll definitely delve into more of that throughout the interview. But at the end of the day, what it really does is it just opens doors for you. That's probably the best way to look at it, is it just does. People get to know you. They get to believe in whatever it is that you're doing. And it's just a very warm and welcoming door that's open for you, because you don't have to really prove yourself to anyone, because by that point, once they've opened the door, the deal is already done because they trust you already.
Absolutely. Love that story. And thank you for being vulnerable, here on the podcast and sharing all of that. I completely agree. And I'm such a proponent of people building their personal brands as well. And something I see other people that are building their personal brands is that sometimes they think that building their personal brand is all about sales, that they need to get on and all the posts that they're going to make is about their business and selling. But that's not the right strategy. And when I see your content, Tima, you're not doing that, right? You didn't grow your influence by just selling what you offer in every single post. You're doing that through storytelling, through authenticity. And even the post that I shared today, guys, of her initially, that story, when she made that post, there was no selling. It was just a story that shared more of what she stands for. So I see that a lot happening for people who are just starting to build their brand. They think they just need to talk about their business, but I think there's more. Could you give us some insights on what is your approach on building a personal brand?
It's a really wonderful question. So there is a little bit of a delay. So if there's a delay, I don't know what's happening with the connection. So I'm hoping I got all your question. So first of all, I just want to make it very clear that it's completely okay to sell yourself. But the way that I look at approaching selling and the way that I help my clients, I look at it in a very elegant way, a very sophisticated and a very subtle way. I don't ever want my clients to sell themselves like in people's faces, because I think it's just not the right way to do it. And I do think potentially it does cheapen someone's brand over time. So in terms of how do you do that through your personal brand, I'm very, very focused on purpose and mission and why and values. That really is the core to your brand. It's the core to how you connect with humans. And you can, you can definitely sell, but I look at the selling component through the conversations that you have behind the scenes, the people that reach out to you in the direct messages, the people that have questions, the people that show genuine interest in the comment section. And that's where you can then take a sales conversation or have the intention to potentially do some work with someone when they show you that interest, when they show you that little bit of curiosity. But in terms of where does the message come from, I cannot stress enough how important it is. First of all, you need to have clarity. You need to have clarity around your mission. You need to have clarity around your purpose. And whatever that is, it needs to be bigger than who you are. And I think you and I have talked about this probably a few years ago. My approach hasn't changed because it really is the heart and the center to everything else that you're doing. It's everything that you're doing is an extension of that. And once you get clarity around that, you will always come from a place of intention. And yes, that authenticity, even though that word has been overused for so many years now, but it comes from a place of intention and purpose. And if it comes from there, then every single post that you put out there will connect with people on a deeper level. And I'm very focused on that. I'm very focused on how can we connect with people through our words and through our content, through video, through text, through whatever it is that we're putting out there. How can we connect with people on a deeper level? And if you keep focusing on that, you will stand out because you don't need to sell because you're coming from a place of meaning and intention. And that's really my strategy. And also for my clients, my CEOs, these really successful individuals, everything that we do comes from that place.
I absolutely love that. And thank you for clarifying that. Right, selling ourselves is totally fine, but it's the approach that you use that's going to be impactful, and the way that you connect with people and how you craft your messaging is so crucial. I absolutely love that. And actually today, Tima, I was at my first TEDx talk. I attended one here in Nashville, and one of the speakers said, your story is your brand and your brand is your business. And I think that may resonate with you as well and what you stand for, because ultimately showing up on social media and building your personal brand is also about, like you said, connection. It's about sharing your story. It's about sharing what you stand for and using that as a point of authenticity and connection to attract people who connect to that message, right? Who relate, who believe in what you stand for, to support and work with you. So I really, really resonated with that. And one of the things you say as well is that your personal brand is an intangible asset that will continue to exponentially increase in value over time.
Yes.
Why do you think that is?
Well, it comes back to who you are as an individual, because if you understand what your values are and you live by your values, how could that not grow exponentially over time? And what I mean by that is, you're not being something other than who you actually are in the real world. One of the biggest things I always say to people that I work with is I want people to feel as though that they've met you even before they've actually met you. I want them to read your content, watch your content, go onto your profile and genuinely feel like that there's a real connection there. And so how could that not grow and be exponential over time? Because you're being completely connected to your values and living through your values. I'm very, very focused on that, because your business and who you are shouldn't be any different, because it's not necessarily what you're selling or your product or your service, even though that is, a key component to it. But it's not that. It's how you are and how you show up as a business person. It's the energy that you put in to your business. It's the energy that you put into yourself as an individual. I feel like they are all the same thing. They are not separate to who you are. You know how a lot of people talk about, well, when you're home, be present with your family and all of those sorts of things. Yes, of course, but your business is a part of your life and you are a part of your business. It's difficult to separate the two together. It's like saying, well, separate family when you're at business. Well, no, the business is there and it exists because you want to give your family a better life. So I see them as all encompassing, all in one. So that's why I really believe that it is exponential. But of course, you do have to be very true to yourself and true to whatever those values are, and making sure that you live through those. Because if you do go against your value system, then potentially potentially it won't be an exponential growth. You'll be devaluing yourself because you are going against everything that you believe in. So yeah, I hope that explains that.
Yeah. And Tima, do you have an example or of maybe a client or someone you know or you've seen that went against their own value system and maybe that hurt their personal brand? Because I think I understand what you're trying to say, but perhaps if you could get an example, it could bring your message to life.
Yeah, okay, that's a good question. All right, let me think of a scenario. So, yeah, let me think of that. It's a really good question, Celeste.
Yeah, no
It's
worries.
interesting.
Take a second.
Yeah, it's interesting because look, my clients and we have a lot of discussions before we post anything. And so if there's something that's potentially controversial, let's say it's political, we look at the impact that it has, that it may potentially have on their brand and how their audience would receive that particular message. But we'd also look at, well, what it would mean for them personally if they don't share that message. So we've definitely had a couple of clients who are quite political and would share, and they're based in the US. And so there were a couple of moments where they really wanted to focus on a message and really share their opinion about the current political situation in the US. And it made sense to share that because people saw that person as an actual leader in that particular industry, and that industry actually is reliant in a way in terms of the government policies based on where that industry is moving forward, for example. So, for example, say electrical vehicles. Now, in the car industry, not all dealers believe in electrification of vehicles. They just don't believe it is the step forward. They don't believe in the push and that whole agenda, let's say, that the government is trying to guide that whole industry. So, we've had a couple of clients where they are going down that path, but they also want to voice their opinion. And it was a situation where it could have gone either way, but it actually worked out positively because a lot of these dealers feel like that, but they're just not, they don't have the courage to talk about it because they're worried about what it would do to their business. They're worried about what it would do in terms of their reputation within the industry. So this particular client that did voice their opinion on that also provided a strategy around, well, this is what else could be done. So it didn't necessarily damage their brand, but it definitely inspired a lot of heated conversation. There were people that were definitely in agreement, and then there were others that weren't. But the angle that we took was, okay, this is what the government wants to do. This is where the world is heading. These are my thoughts, and these are the reasons why, but this is also another alternative. But by the way, we all need to go this way as an industry because this is where the future is heading. So that was really the approach that we took. That and another one, which is actually a great example. I was in this dilemma myself just recently, and not that I want this conversation to go politically or anything, but with the situation that's happening in Palestine at the moment, I'm not Palestinian, but I'm a human. And seeing what's happening in Palestine is something that I just kept thinking about. And I know that I have a platform, and I know that I have not necessarily a responsibility to talk about this particular situation where I felt like people were waiting for me to talk about it. But for me, I was thinking about, well, what do I do with this? Because I do want to talk about this, and I could potentially get completely cancelled for it. But I was prepared to take the risk. I was prepared to completely lose my following, completely lose everything that I've worked hard for, to speak about something that is so close to my values. Now, is it business focused? No, it isn't. It's definitely not business focused. But I did speak up, and I did take the risk. And I reminded myself that if I were to lose my profile, if I were to lose my following, I'll just build again because I know exactly what to do. And the greats of this world didn't just build once, they built over and over again. So I did weigh up my options. I did look at how would this be perceived and how would this be taken. But I shared my message in a way that I shared the underlying message that I wanted to share without hopefully offending people. But I think in these situations that you would be offending people no matter what you say. So that's a real current, real life example around, my own personal approach to how I dealt with that particular situation. And there was never at any point where I was too scared to actually do it, but I was just very aware of the consequences. And I would not normally talk about these topics, to be honest, political, religious, or anything like that. But it's part of my value system. I believe in humanity, and I believe in peace, and I believe in all those sorts of things. And I'm a mother as well. So seeing these things online was something that I really felt like I needed to talk about. And did impact on my profile negatively. I did lose followers, but I also gained people that believed in what I believed in too. And I think that's a positive either way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Those were two great examples. Thank you for sharing. And I agree with you. And I love how you speak about when you are looking at these controversial topics, you reflect on how you're going to come about it, what you're going to say. And at the end of the day, if it stands with your values, this is who you are, right? This is what if someone was in person, you would probably speak to them about. So you're going to go ahead and do that anyway online, because as you said, you want to create an environment with your brand that makes people feel like they truly know you. So I love that. I appreciate you for sharing that. And that makes me think about also, everybody wants to blow up on social media. Everybody wants 1 million followers. But the more I meet people who are actually there, the more I realize it takes grit. It takes courage, as you said. It takes a certain kind of person to get to that level, because when I speak to people who come to me and they don't have a personal brand right now online, and they're like, Celeste, I want to get there. You have one. How can I do it? And they'll post, and I encourage them. I give them some of my tips. They post for a month, and they don't blow up in a month, right? They don't have suddenly after a month 10,000 followers like they wish they had, and they're so bummed out. And one of my views, and tell me what you think, is that when you're building a personal brand, is a long-term game. You're not necessarily going to see results in a week or maybe even a month. Hopefully you will, right? Eventually, as you're showing up. But a lot of building your personal brand, sometimes it can be lonely, because you need to show up even if you're not getting the results or the thousands of comments that you wish you were in 1 week or in 1 month, right? So what are your thoughts for those who want to start and really take it to the next level regarding, like, yes, their value will 100% come from building your personal brand, but it may not be tomorrow?
Oh, it's so interesting. We live in such a narcissistic world, Celeste. We really, really do. And I mean that with all love. We just live in this world where people put so much value on these numbers, and they want to be famous overnight, and then they don't want to put in the hard work or the patience, let's say. And, honestly, like for me, when I first started building my brand, first, I didn't know that I was building a brand. I just had a really important message to talk about, and that was my mission. And I also wanted to be known something else other than being a financial planner, because I obviously changed careers. So my advice to these people is, first of all, ask yourself why you want that external validation. That's the first question. That would not normally be the question I would ask, but based on what you're telling me, based on these individuals that have this idea where they, they want to be famous overnight. The first question I'd ask is, why do you want this external validation? Why is this so meaningful to you? And I don't mean that in a spiteful way. This is a genuine, honest question, because at some point, that will reduce or stop, because you don't ever want to be a slave to an algorithm or a slave to external validation. And that just goes without saying, just life in general. Because people can turn on you. People can just stop watching you. People can stop checking out your content. They might see somebody else that's better looking or seems smarter or more intelligent or seems more successful. So that attention can be steered away very quickly overnight. So why do you want that external validation? That's the first question. The next question is, what do you want to achieve creating this personal brand? What is it? What is this result? What is this goal? What are these goals that you want to achieve building this personal brand? And then the next question, I'm so sorry about this cough. And then the next question is, what is your mission? That was one of the things that we touched on before. That would normally be my first question, is what is your mission? What is your why? What is this bigger impact that you want to have? And it doesn't have to be this, I want to change people's lives. It doesn't have to be that. But what is this bigger impact that you want to have? And what is your purpose? So when you answer those questions, I then want them to ask themselves, why? Why is this so meaningful to me? Why is this impact that I want to have so important? Why is this mission so important? And keep asking themselves that question, why? And the more they do that, the more clarity they have around what this personal brand is and why they're actually investing in that personal brand. And by the way, investing in that personal brand is just investing in your own reputation. It's just an extension of who you really are in the real world, but putting that on a digital platform. That's all it is. So once they get clarity around that, they can then go from that point and go, okay, well, what are the topics now that they have clarity around their mission, their purpose, their why, and also the goals that they want to achieve? Then they can ask themselves, okay, what are those topics that I'm going to talk about on a consistent basis, and break those topics down? So I always say to my clients, think of four main, we call them content pillars. And I'm sure that's not a foreign word to everyone, but for some that may not know what that means, is they're just your four main topics that you will talk about. And the number 4 I've just made up, so it's not like you have to follow 4, but I think 4 is a good number. 5 may be a little bit too much. Think of 4 topics, your main content pillars, and then under each one, break it down by another 4 subheadings, and then under each subheading, break it down by another 4. And before you know it, you'll have a couple of months worth of content and those main talking points that you'll be talking about consistently and repeatedly over a long period of time. So you can definitely have the clarity around your mission, the connection that you have for your purpose and your mission and your why, but then you have to have that consistency when it comes to posting content online. And that consistency is, when I think about it, honestly, it's probably the most important piece, because if you're not being consistent in putting your message out there, you will lose that momentum and you will lose people's attention, because people's attention online is really what we're all trying to capture and captivate within the first few seconds. And then we want to bring them in and attract them to come into our world and really get them to believe in whatever it is that we're trying to achieve in terms of our mission. So for those that do give up easily, honestly, it means that you're in it for the wrong reasons. So, for example, if you wanted to get married, let's say, and you meet some random stranger, you're not going to expect them to marry you straight away. Like, no matter how beautiful you are, how successful you are, that that question is not going to be asked of you within the first, 2 weeks of meeting someone. It's going to take some time. So you have to build that trust, that relationship, that, I totally get you, I understand you, I've got your back. I mean, that's really the following in that audience that you want to build. You want them to say those things in their own mind, like, we love you, we'll take care of you, I believe in what you say, I trust in what you say, I want to help you, all those sorts of things. It sounds a little bit crazy, but it's true. So yeah, you can't expect it to happen overnight. And if you are waiting to be, popular and a celebrity overnight, it may not happen. And if it doesn't happen, ask yourself, do I want to do this? Because if you don't have that large following and you don't get those results, then what will that mean for you? It may not bother you, and it may bother you. And if it does bother you, ask yourself why. So I hope those steps will help, and I hope those questions will help. But let me tell you, I think that when we become a slave to these sorts of things, because LinkedIn at the moment, the algorithm is it's going through a massive shift, and the engagement that a lot of people would normally receive it's probably cut by like 40 to 60%, depending on the type of content you're putting out there. And there are a lot of people that are so genuinely hurt and disheartened by that. And I look at that and I think, we'll never figure out this algorithm. It's like we'll never figure out the algorithm of life. We just do it. We just go day by day. We go day by day. We do our best. We try and understand what the next steps are and allow that to inspire you. I look at when the algorithm changes, honestly, I have a little giggle to myself and I'll be like, you know what? I'm going to figure this out. I'm just going to get better and better at what I do. That's all I need to focus on. You just get better at your communication. You get better at taking care of the people that take care of you. You spend more time with them. You show them love, curiosity, connection, all those things behind the scenes. They're the things that help you grow your audience. It's not just because of a viral post or because you look cute and sexy in a picture. There's so much more to it behind the scenes.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tima, for that. I love your marriage analogy. That was so great. And those tips that you shared as well, that was really enlightening. And I think many people will be able to get lots of nuggets on what they can begin implementing. And I love that you speak about mission a lot. So, Tima, what is your mission?
That's a great question. My mission is so simple, and it might sound really, really, I guess, unexpected because of the work that I do. My mission is I really want people to never lose hope and always have that feeling of hope within them. I think when we have hope and faith within us, we truly feel as though that we can continue on with life and really just focus on the things that we want to focus on. So the message that I share is probably unexpected when you look at my content, but there's always an underlying message of hope. And when I work with my clients, that's also the type of clients that I'm attracting. And I'm not like attracting, like the Tony Robbins of the world. I'm attracting like really serious business people in many different industries, from steel manufacturing to cars to compliance to finance. And there's always that underlying message of hope. And collectively, we do this with my work and also my clients' work. Instilling that hope amongst humanity is a really beautiful way to do business.
I love that. That's beautiful. Absolutely. Lovely. Thank you for sharing that, Tima. And a couple more questions before we wrap up this conversation, which has been so wonderful. What is one thing that you have learned in 2023 as we wrap up the year very soon?
one thing that I've learnt this year, I would say the thing that I've probably had the most clarity on more and more. Actually, there's a couple of things, Celeste. I mean, one could be business focused and one could be personal, if you don't mind me sharing both.
Sure, go ahead.
The business one is that it's not really the thing that you're actually doing. It's not the industry. It's not the product or the service that you're selling. It's not that thing. You know, we do live in this world where we're told all of these messages, lots and lots of different messages. You know, you have to love what you do. You have to wake up feeling motivated and all of those sorts of things. And of course, there has to be a level of dedication and commitment to what you're doing. But it's confusing because you may not necessarily have that excitement or that wow factor for the industry that you're actually focusing business on, but you might just really love business. I hope that makes sense. So for me, really understanding the difference between the two has really helped me become a better business person, because I'm not focusing on the thing, I'm focusing on improving as a business person, just getting a lot more savvy in business, really understanding psychology and human nature, understanding how I can better communicate my message with people. So that all goes beyond that thing that I'm doing, because I could be doing any industry. It just happens to be the branding industry. So for me, that's been my biggest lesson this year, is really understanding that they are very different, and I don't have to have this real love for the thing. It goes beyond that. It goes beyond that in terms of expansion as a person, growth as a person, because all of that will help that thing. So I hope that helps somebody out there, because we do live in this world where there's so many messages. The other thing that I've really, and I've always known this, but again, just a lot more clarity, a lot more confirmation about this, is that having a value system and having a belief in something bigger than who you are. I believe in God. And I think, you know, again, we live in this world where there's a lot of, what can I say? You know, there's a loss of value and value system and loss of faith. And I feel that to better ourselves as individuals and as human beings in the world is really having a connection to something bigger than who we are and bigger than our own existence. And for me, that's God. And really just delving into my own understanding. I mean, I'm Muslim, so for me, just really learning more about my own faith has really just helped me just become a better person in general, a better mother, a better business person, a better daughter, a better everything. So for me, they're the two clarifications that feel a lot more stronger for me this year.
I love that. That's beautiful. And I can certainly think that many people will take away and reflect on those two lessons, because they're pretty universal, and we're all always trying to elevate ourselves and get better. So thank you for sharing that. And to wrap up, Tima, my last question for you is regarding success. My podcast is called The Light to Success because I want to redefine what success really means and the narrative that's out there. So my question to you is, what does success mean to you now?
Yeah. You know, this question is so interesting because I feel like it changes. My response changes as I grow and as I spend more time on this earth, shall I say. So now the two things that came to mind as you asked me that question. The first thing that I consider success for me is my connection with God. I really feel that that's such an important way for me to live my life. And I see that as success, because if I have that connection with God and it's meaningful and it's strong, that means I'm going to be guided in the right way. It means that I will make the best possible decisions in that moment as I have that connection with God. So for me, that's the first layer of success. My second layer of success is having my beautiful daughter. She's a teenager now, hoping that one day, maybe she already feels this, I'm not sure, I don't ask her, that she would look at me for inspiration and look up to me, not because I'm her mother, but because she chooses to. And she genuinely feels inspired by me and wanting to instill some of those values within herself through my actions and just through the way I am as a mother, through the way I am as just a human being. So they're really the two things that jumped at me as soon as you asked me that question.
That is beautiful. I love that. And thank you so much for sharing that. Beautiful. Well, this has been such a wonderful conversation, Tima. And to all of you listening, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you feel inspired and motivated. And I will encourage you to follow Tima, follow her journey, connect with her, reach out to her if you need help with any of the things that we've spoken about today. And ask her any questions that you have. She is always very wonderful at connecting with her audience and as best as she can, I'm sure. But thank you again, Tima, for being here with us today, for your time. It's been a pleasure. And until next time.
Thank you so much, Celeste. And thank you to everyone for putting up with my very annoying cough. And I just want to say one thing, Celeste. It's been such a joy just witnessing your own growth as a woman, as an incredible business person, someone that I've just been watching from afar, and just seeing you just blossom into this beautiful human being. You've also inspired me, and I love the work that you've been doing and the positivity and all of that incredible work and all of your heart that you put out into the world. So I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Tima. I appreciate it.
You have just finished listening to this episode, and I hope you're feeling inspired, enlightened, and ready to take the next step to accomplish your goals. Make sure to check out the show notes for any information shared. And if this message impacted you, please share this wisdom with at least one person you care about, and let's grow this movement across the globe. Always remember that the light to success is you, my friend. Until next time.